Welcome to our Scamcast, where we interview accomplished entrepreneurs and senior executives of NITT alumni. Today, it is a pleasure to host Mr. Senthil Kumar. I'll start off with a brief introduction of myself, and then I'll introduce Senthil before we get started with questions to Senthil. So, I'm Ram Prasad, alumni of NITT, batch of 1990. I am founder of Dellens, where we provide fractional chief technology officer services. I'm in the business of helping tech entrepreneurs address their product and technology scaling challenges cost effectively without committing to a full-time hire. Today, we are honored to welcome Senthil Kumar, a visionary in the world of cinema technology. Senthil is the co-founder of Qube Cinema Technologies, an organization that has revolutionized the way films are made, distributed, and exhibited globally. Under his leadership, Qube Cinema not only advanced digital film production in India, but also made significant inroads into the global cinema technology market. Graduating with a degree in computer science from NITT in 1985, Senthil embarked on a journey that would transform the cinematic experience. In preparation for this podcast, I truly enjoyed reading about Senthil's background and innovations. Please join me in welcoming a true innovator, Mr. Senthil Kumar.
Thank you so much, Ram Prasad.
You're welcome. All right, let's get started. Let's start from the beginning. The beginning to us is around the time you started NITT, what was formerly NIT Trichy earlier on. What influenced your decision to study at NITT, and how did it shape your interest in technology and entrepreneurship?
I was, from when I was very young, destined to study engineering. I think it was something that I took as a given, and so did my family. And when I finished my college, I had decent enough marks, so I was fortunate enough to get into NIT. And I did have a choice between different course in Guindy Engineering College or REC Trichy. And I think it was my brother who told me that I needed the experience of another city, and talked about how the credentials of the college were so good. So there was also the fact that NIT for the first time that year offered computer science, and for me that was therefore a no-brainer. I was very much into computers, and this made my decision so easy, and it was one of the best decisions of my life, certainly.
Glad to have you as an alumni of our college. So, were you destined to be in engineering because of social pressures, where everyone wants to be an engineer or a doctor, or was it an interest that you cultivated in earlier on? And how did you cultivate? If so, how did you cultivate that interest?
Well, I think it's in my genes. I was always tinkering with stuff as a boy, and taking things apart, sometimes managing to put them back together again. And then later I took up electronics as a hobby, and built a lot of little devices around the home, like a light that would come on if you clapped, and a little amplifier for my own music, stuff like that. And so I was definitely going to be an engineer regardless. Even if I studied some other course, my brain would have been an engineering brain.
Awesome. That's great. All right. So, what were you, if you go back to your times at REC Trichy, how would you describe Senthil to your friends when you were back home? How would your friends describe you in college days?
Uh, I think I would always be thought of as a techie, but I also had a good reputation of being responsible, and I think that went over to everybody's parents as well. So people always trusted me, and unfortunately, that meant I had the pressure of living up to that responsibility, which I think I mostly have.
Nice, fantastic. So, what happened after you graduated? Did you start a job or did you start into your entrepreneurial venture right away?
Okay, so we have to take a couple of steps back, and what comes to me is actually the famous Steve Jobs commencement address, when he talked about how you can only understand your life looking backward. So for me, as a young boy, my grandfather was A.V. Mayappan, who founded the AVM studio. And one of the companies that he had started was called Bharat Film Distributors, that provided 16 films for clubs and sometimes for homes. And because we were part of the family, we had the privilege of watching home movies. So we were really able to get 16 prints, mostly in black and white those days, just because of the cost of color prints, and borrow a projector from Bharat Film Distributors and play those movies for a larger family, extended family, cousins and aunts and uncles. All of us would gather around and watch movies. And invariably, I would be the one that threaded the projector, and those projectors were quite fragile. They would break down, and I would be the one that understood what was wrong and how to fix these things. And that taught me a lot about film and cinema to a large extent. And over time, this was something that was just an invisible background for me. But during my last year of college, I had the opportunity to work on a movie that my dad was directing and co-producing. And this movie, I was also very interested in sound and very mm, I think passionate about audio. So I got the opportunity to work on the soundtrack of that movie just because I was good at the job, and I took some time off from college. Attendance was not that compulsory in those days, and I worked on this soundtrack. But that's when I realized how bad things were in the audio recording business in India. And I started to read up more and more in magazines about how it should be done. And it struck me that I could do things very differently, much more economically, but at much higher quality, using very different kinds of audio recording equipment, multi-track audio recorders that were synced to film projectors, something that required a complex technology. Until then, film was synced to film magnetic recorders and the sprocket holes were what ensured that there was a mechanical sync between the two. It's a bit complex to explain this, but basically, there was something called time code that allowed different devices to be synchronized to each other electronically rather than mechanically. And I saw that there was an opportunity to do it using these kinds of electronic devices, and therefore use much lower cost but much higher quality multi-track audio recorders along with film. And I decided to try and set up a studio before going abroad for my masters. And fortunately, at the same time, there was a scheme by the Tamil Nadu government. They had an organization called SIPCOT, the State Industries Promotion Corporation of Tamil Nadu, that provided loans for engineering graduates without any collateral. In those days, it was unimaginable that you could get a loan without collateral. And I, even in the last year of college, I started to apply for the loan. It took a little longer, and I finished that whole loan process and got this loan approved from SIPCOT a little after I finished college. One of the things is that I used VisiCalc on my Atari 800 to do all of the project calculations. So what they had on paper, which was sheet after sheet of calculations and how to do those calculations to work on profitability and the business plan, I put it into VisiCalc, and obviously we all understand how easy it is to use a spreadsheet today. But in those days, it was magic to the people at SIPCOT that they would give me something that needed days of work, and I'd come back to them the next morning with everything filled out. Uh, and that got me the loan sanction, and I started an audio studio. As anybody who's ever started a business knows, there's no way to escape after that and go on to study some more. So my master's plans were abandoned, and I stayed on in India, and the rest worked out very well, I should say. But it's still uh, a fork in the road that I took, which I'm still very happy about.
Okay, no, that's a great startup. Great startup. So these electronic methods of uh, doing this audio recording versus mechanical, were these technologies new to the world or new to the India, and were they existing in the US or elsewhere?
Well, these technologies had been in use for quite a few years internationally, but you know that in the 80s, India was very isolated economically from the rest of the world. There was very high import duties, and there was no internet, obviously. So the knowledge about all of this required you to read books, read magazines. There were no YouTube videos for people to figure things out. So really, India grew up in its own path and worked with a minimum of technology in the movie sound space. And we also had our own nomenclature for things in India, quite somewhat different from the nomenclature that was used internationally. It was a very different world. So just bringing that technology to India changed the perception and got got me a lot of recognition from people who worked with us. Many people felt that this was not something that would work at all. But when it started to work out and we produced high quality soundtracks, people really changed their minds. And all of the directors who cared about quality came to work in our studio. And you know that people who are passionate work with those who are passionate, and it feeds on that passion feeds itself. And we all really enjoyed working together and improving things.
Awesome. So there's a pattern here. You found a better way to do it as opposed to doing it mechanically. You found using VisiCalc, you did a better spreadsheet, so to speak. So you're always, it seems you're always looking for a better way to do something.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. I think anytime that I have to do something personally, I hate doing it the boring way or the long winded way. So I would just always find a shortcut that's automatable and
Fantastic. And that's great. So you got this loan, you forgot about your masters, and then what happened? Yeah, how did you get your first customer? How did that happen?
So I set up the studio, and there was quite a bit of demand for audio work in the movie industry because remember, those were again the 80s when all of the different languages were post produced in what was then Madras. So Malayalam and Telugu and Hindi and Kannada all would come to Chennai for their post production work, and that meant that there was always demand for one more studio as long as you were good. And once people started to work with us, they realized that this was really high quality, faster, better, and they always wanted to come back. So it very quickly became a problem of this is the amount of time that we have, and who could work with us.
Which innovation are you most, you've obviously done several innovations, but which one are you most proud of?
So after Avid, we went on to also bring digital sound to India with DTS, and and that brought us a lot of familiarity with cinema because that's the first time working with exhibitors and the cinema industry itself, not from the creative side but from the distribution and delivery and playback in the cinema. Converting the sound in the cinema to digital was great because whatever quality we put out in the studio was finally getting to the theater, and that was very fulfilling for all of us who worked on it. Uh, Again, DTS was something where we wanted to improve the soundtrack in theaters, and we were trying to work with different companies. Dolby was a natural fit because they were the kings of audio in the cinema at that time. But unfortunately, they felt that India needed to go through some years of working with analog stereo audio before we would be ready for digital. And our thought process was like how India was leapfrogging from analog telephones to digital and mobile directly. We should also leapfrog from mono sound in the cinema to digital sound in the cinema in one step. So we found this small company in the US called DTS and asked them if they would be willing to work with us. They said that they had their hands tied because they had just released Jurassic Park as the first movie on DTS in the US, and they were busy trying to get penetration into Western Europe, which is by far the bigger market at that time. But they said that they were very impressed with our approach about Avid and how we made it work in India. So if we were happy to do it on our own, they were willing to license the technology to us and let us do whatever we pleased in the Indian market. And that's how we made DTS work here. We put out DTS devices in theaters at our cost, taking all the money that we made from Avid until then. And we managed to sign up 2 or 3 movies to do their soundtracks in DTS on the basis of these 20 theaters being present. And we told these theaters that whenever you play your third movie, you pay us for the equipment or we'll take it back, whichever you choose. So it was like we were taking all the risk on doing this. And that's how we planned to break the chicken and egg. Now, why I'm going into this backstory is because it all has bearing on how we did the next step. So anyway, in DTS, we did a good job. The soundtracks of the movies were really praised. The first movie that we did, Karuppu Roja in Tamil, actually was commercially, unfortunately, a failure. But it did win the best soundtrack state government award. But the other 2 movies we did were commercially very successful. One was Sirai Chalai, which was the Tamil dub of Kala Pani in Malayalam. And the second was Indian, which was Kamal Hassan's movie again. And I say Kamal Hassan's movie again because the first time we worked with him was for a movie soundtrack at Media Artist. The second time we worked with him was on the editing of Mahanadi on Avid, which was the first film edited on a non-linear system outside of the US. And the third time we worked with him on a big project was for the DTS soundtrack of Indian. Along the way, we worked with him on other projects, but those were not first in the same way. Anyway, so the success of Indian and Sirai Chalai Kala Pani made DTS very popular in the southern half of India. And then the dub of Indian in Hindi, which was called Hindustani, did fantastic in the rest of the country. And so DTS became very popular everywhere. So we got this familiarity across the board from the creative side to the editing to the cinema to the exhibition industry. And this combination was very educational, gave us an insight into the industry and gave us connections with all of the top directors in India, from Bombay to Chennai to Hyderabad to Trivandrum. It was really all of the passionate people loved to work with us, thought that we were doing a very good job. It helped that I was a young engineer and people felt kindly towards me, I think, because they felt the passion and the youth. So all was going well, but it was something that we always felt that the next revolution after digital sound in the cinema would be digital cinema itself, where picture would be digital. To that end, we actually organized in 1999 or I think early 2000, we organized a demo in Mumbai of digital cinema, working with Baco, the projector manufacturer, and we converted a reel of the song Chaya Chaya from Dil Se to digital along with a scene of the movie, and played that both in digital and played that on film with Barco's equipment and a borrowed player from a company called Qube in the US to show the audience at the Mami Film Festival in Mumbai how digital was now finally comparable to film in quality, and then it would not at all fade over time. It would have the advantage of very low cost of release. When we saw that the audience really agreed that the quality was the same, we felt that we shouldn't bring external technology to do this. We should build our own. And so we started to work on a digital cinema server. And I was super fortunate again that somebody from the US reached out over our website to say that he was a software engineer. He was very keen on the audio video industry. He was impressed by what we were doing in DTS and Avid. And he wanted to know if we had any thoughts of developing any products in software. And this was Rajesh, who's now a very close friend and the CTO of the company. He therefore moved to India from Chicago to start software development, and we worked on our first digital cinema server. We thought we would use mostly software technologies to build a low-cost product for the Indian market that would play high-quality movies with all the security required. We architected it in the way that we thought best, and as it turned out, it was very close match to the architecture that was proposed by the initiative of all the Hollywood studios called the Digital Cinema Initiatives, or DCI. So since the standards were somewhat similar, we adapted ours to play movies in the DCI format as well, so that we could release Hollywood movies, and that made us one of the 4 or 5 players in the world that had a digital cinema product. And that gave us a market around the world and exposure to cinema chains all across. And we have our product which is called the Qube XP server, installed in 50 plus countries from China to the US to Australia, New Zealand to Spain and Portugal and Italy and the UK.
Looking back, how do you think REC Trichy 4 years of college influenced your career?
I think it's the first way it influenced me was it moved me away from home and taught me about a life that I hadn't been exposed enough to. It gave me friends from all across India and in fact from many corners of the world, because REC did have a small batch of foreign students as well, and I hope they still do. It was then the education was quite unique for us because we were the first batch of computer science, and initially the syllabus was quite boring. The first year was common for all of us in the 4-year course, and during that we saw that the syllabus for computer science was somewhat limiting and not quite computer science. So we students spoke to the principal, and that was Professor Nagaratnam at that time. Professor Manisundaram had moved on to, I think he had retired maybe, and Professor Nagaratnam had taken over. And he said, why don't you brainstorm and come up with a syllabus, and then there's this professor at IIT Chennai you can go consult. So a bunch of us students who are going to take up computer science got together and devised a syllabus based on many top colleges from where we had got the physical copy of the syllabus. Again, remember, no internet. So we got mailed copies of the syllabus from all across, from Columbia to Yale to, I don't remember now, but it was a number of the top Ivy League schools. We put together a syllabus that we devised ourselves, and Professor Nagaratnam said, go meet this professor in IIT and ask him his opinion and tell him to come back with recommendations. So a bunch of us came to Chennai, met the professor in IIT, and he told us, he glanced through the syllabus, spent about an hour, and told us this looks very good. And we took it back to Professor Nagaratnam and told him that the IIT prof also agrees that this is a good syllabus. And he said, fine, leave it behind, and we went away. And when we came back after our holidays, lo and behold, the syllabus was exactly what we had said. Wow. And it was a very, very difficult syllabus. And we had not thought through the thing that there would not be teachers available to help us through any of this. And we were the first batch of computer science in India completely. So this was something that we as a set of students sat together and read chapter after chapter and taught each other and interpreted for each other what this was. So this education about how you could start from first principles, understand something from a textbook just by discussions with like-minded, intelligent people. Because one thing is that obviously REC Trichy is a filter of people who are hardworking and have somehow managed to get the better marks and come. So it was a bunch of pretty intelligent, hardworking people who sat together and figured things out. And we somehow managed to get through the course. Each time when we went into exams, we would feel that there was no question that we could ever answer because it was such a difficult thing, but somehow things would turn out okay, and most of us did very well. So that was again an amazing experience. And the third thing that REC taught me was about doing extracurricular stuff. I had the opportunity to work behind the scenes on Festember, even in, I think, in the second year, and it was amazing to do that. And Professor again Nagaratnam helped when we wanted to start a magazine for the college. He encouraged it, and I used my Atari 800 to do word processing. We would write the text, and I had built a word processing program of my own that would use fonts that actually Pony designed to print the magazine. And we actually had it printed exactly using those fonts. So it was probably the first instance of desktop publishing in India. And the magazine was the analog, and we published the first issues. I'm not sure if it's still around, but that again was an amazing experience to go through. Getting sponsorship for the magazines, getting sponsorship for Festember, working on the audio for Festember, working on computer programs for some of the games that we used in Festember with the very first CPM based computers. So REC was a lot of firsts for me, and very, very educational, even though the classes may not have been the highlights here.
Right. Absolutely. No, the computer science students after your batch should be grateful for what you did. They got the course materials from Yale and Columbia and other top ranked universities right in the heart of Trichy, right? So that's on account of the work that you guys did. On account of that's great. Thank you for the work there. That's good.
I'm not sure what happened after that though, because there were a couple of batches of us that were still under Madras University, and then it shifted to Bharatidasan University.
You also expanded Qube, your company, globally. You obviously did your story until now that you have explained to us is you've taken what is available globally, you have made it your own, made it India, made it work in Indian settings, and did a very high quality job. But you also expanded globally. Tell us about that and your journey in that direction.
So my colleague and friend Rajesh, who moved to India to work on the software in the beginning, then wanted to move back because that would his girlfriend at the time and wife now was still in the US. So he went back to Chicago, and then moved to LA after that because the movie industry is based in LA. And we started Qube Cinema as a subsidiary, Qube Cinema Inc. as a subsidiary in the US. And that's really how we set it up. The foreign exchange regulations in India helped, made it easier if it was a subsidiary, and that's how we set it up. And then we had our first salesperson who's based in the UK join us, and things slowly progressed from there. We had some tech support and salespeople join us in the US as well, and things moved on from there. And we got a break here and a break there, and things worked out.
You, obviously, you have done a lot of technology work in in the film industry. Do you enjoy watching films as passionately as setting the audio right and the screens and technology right?
Absolutely. I've always been a movie buff myself, and I enjoy watching movies. And as you can see from childhood, I've been able to watch movies at home. But as a family, we would also often go to theaters, and then in school and college with friends, I would always go to theaters. And the habit of watching movies stays. I just love consuming content. But of course, it's also now series and not just movies.
So over the course of your career, you have worked with several directors. Who is your favorite director to work with?
It's a very hard question because I've enjoyed working with different directors in different ways. There is Jijo, whose passion for doing things right ignited some of the same feelings in me. There is Kamal Hassan as a director who was wonderful to work with. Then there's Mani Ratnam, with whom I worked on so many different projects of his. Then there is Ashutosh Gavarekar and Amir Khan, with whom I worked on some of their path-breaking movies. And I guess Vidhu Vinod Chopra, with whom I worked on a couple of projects on the audio. It's been an amazing journey working with many great directors. I think I'll do injustice if I
Okay.
don't name
Now,
so
when
many
you
of
say
them.
when you work with these directors, is it a day in and day out like Amir Khan? I love Amir Khan's directing. I like his movies. Would you would you and even Kamala Hassan? Would you work? Is it their team you would work with, or directly with them you would work? How does that working? How does it working together work in your case?
Certainly, it's mostly with the team, but of course, the end decisions would be with the directors themselves. And different directors had different ways of working. There'll be some directors who are very passionate about sound. In fact, the backstory to DTS, the trigger that made digital sound in the cinema happen is because of a director called Padmarajan in Malayalam, with whom we worked on the soundtrack of his movie in Malayalam called Nyan Gandharvan, which unfortunately was his last movie as he passed away shortly afterwards. But he was so passionate about the sound of that movie that when we first saw the print on analog sound, because there was only mono in those days, every time there was a little speck of dust in the soundtrack, which is a natural course of any analog soundtrack, he would turn to look at me as if to ask, why is there that click? And that's what made me think, why are we suffering from poor quality in the theater? Why are we not improving what we deliver? We are producing soundtracks that are great. Why are we not delivering the soundtracks? The same way, every director has his passions, and sometimes the team would work on it mostly, and it would be only the final QC, and there'd be directors who would work on every bit of the soundtrack or the editing. So it's a very different experience working with each one. But there's a lot of working with a team, and obviously each director's team would be shaped by how they worked.
Of course, of course. When running a business, family support is essential. How what has your wife or children been involved in any aspect of your business to date?
Not in any aspect of my business. My family, from my parents, have always been super supportive of my branch into doing technology. And in fact, several times it looked like I was taking enormous risks, but they were absolutely committed. Especially my dad was never allowed self doubt to come in the way, and I always had the opportunity to consult with my brother, who's a serial entrepreneur based in the US. He would always be there for advice and very hard decision making from the point of view of MBA from the University of Chicago. So I often felt that I lacked that hard decision making ability because I hadn't done an MBA, but I would always have people to turn to, like my brother or my father, to help with that. Then later, when things were really getting big in the business, whenever we had a crisis, my wife would always be there to help me solve those crises. And I've been through, of course, a share of those. You heard about the fire and how that shaped my life and my business. Then there was another incident where, in the early days of digital cinema in India, one of the movies that we had released for Yashraj Films, a movie called Aja Nachle, got pirated in a theater somewhere in, I think, Maharashtra or Gujarat, I'm not sure which. And we, I think Yashraj took it up with us strongly about the piracy happening from a copy that we had released. And we explained to them that we weren't able to trace which theater it happened in, but very clearly it was a copy from a camcorder. And they agreed, but they said that you need to solve this. We can't have camcorders capturing the movie, but not knowing where it happened. And it was left at, you should find a solution to this. But suddenly, once when I had been to a trade show in the US along with my co-founder Jendra, and I had come back to India a little earlier than him. And the day I landed, there was a huge news item in the Bombay press saying that one of the legislators in the Bombay Assembly, in the Maharashtra Assembly, had said that they know the source of all piracy in the Hindi film industry, and it's from a company in Andheri called Real Image. Our company was still called Real Image at the time. It was such an unfounded and unfair accusation, but it was said in the assembly, and it was published as a big news item in the newspapers in Mumbai. So it was an immediate crisis, and I just got off the flight when this crisis hit. And that was a time when my wife really helped me through managing the press. And actually, because Jendra was still in the US at that time and he couldn't make it back in time because of certain commitments there, Mani Ratnam also just stepped in to offer moral support and advice, brainstorming, and we worked it out. But finally, the crisis was solved when I just emailed Adi Chopra at Yashraj, blind email, because I had known him from the early days of Avid. I mailed him to say, it's in your hands to clarify to the police that this happened in a theater, and you're sure that it's not something that happened in our own office, or it's not something that we are at fault. And he was in the middle of a movie release at that time, but the very next day we got the letter from them. And that was so heartwarming that people supported us in the hour of need. And we gave that all to the police, and the police said, we have no reason to file a complaint. It's something that the assembly has said. We are not the ones accusing you of anything. But because this letter was there and we refuted it strongly in the press, we were able to overcome a very difficult challenge.
Nice, nice. What do you see as the future for your company, for the vision? What's next?
There are a ton of things that we're doing. Fortunately, the team has expanded hugely. We have an amazing friend and CEO, a guy called Harsh, who joined from the Star TV business. And so a lot of my time has been freed up, as has Jendra's and Rajesh's time, to work on newer projects. And we've also got a number of other people who are able to run businesses on their own. So we're working on many new initiatives. We've started a premium large format called Epic, EPI Cube, so that there's a tie-in with the Cube. And Epic has been doing very well. We have 6 theaters in India already. We will be at a dozen within the end of 2024, and we will be at about 20 theaters across India and a couple internationally by the end of 2025 is the expectation. So this is a premium large format that offers an amazing movie watching experience without a huge economic impact to exhibitors, bring, and audiences are already loving it. Some of the recent movies have really been big hits, collecting more in epic screens than any other screen in their respective states. We're also very proud of our recent Qube distribution system. This is a cloud-based system that delivers content and manages the digital rights of movies across the world. Qube started in 2018, but really took off during the pandemic when things were so difficult for the rest of the company. Qube kept some revenues coming in as it delivered content across the world. We started with Indian content, got our act together, and then the Hollywood studios also evaluated us and came on board. We deliver to 135 countries across the world now, and we deliver content from all the Hollywood studios. We deliver over 95% of Indian movies going internationally, and we manage the digital rights of all of these as well, delivering the keys to theaters as well as the delivering the content electronically or over hard drives in an automated way. So it's a very green initiative, because earlier people used to fly with hard drives across the world, made it very much harder and less organized. But now it's like sitting at a website and telling the system to send to theaters in so many different countries. It makes it very simple and very trackable for producers and distributors, and makes life very simple for the exhibitor as well.
So it's not over. It's just new exciting things are happening.
We have a number of new initiatives apart from these, and I'm very hopeful that many of them will find success.
Well, very best wishes in that regard. Um, what advice would you give young NITT entrepreneurs, or even not so young entrepreneurs, as they embark on their entrepreneurial journey?
Um, I think one thing that you must be is passionate about whatever you're doing. I think if you don't have a particular love for what you're doing, then find something else that you love doing and make that your profession. That's one piece of advice. Second is, whatever industry you're in, know that industry like the back of your hand, know that industry end to end, so that you can make decisions that are right for the people in that industry, and you can predict the future. See, the thing about knowing something very well is you know how it's going to evolve as well. Sure, artificial intelligence is making things very hard to predict. The way that technology is changing today is faster than we've ever seen. So sometimes every one of us questions how and where things are going. But if you know an industry very well and you work in it from the grassroots up, then you'll be better at predicting where things are going. You'll be better at looking at where there are holes in the process that you can fix with a unique product. And that's what it takes to be a success. And of course you can't be carried away by what venture capitalists or private equity tells you. You need to have the conviction about what you're doing and not be pushed into something, because we've seen from the dot-com days, people were pushed into business models that were unviable. And then when things didn't go right, the rug was pulled under them as well. You've got to have the conviction to do what you feel will make you money in the end of the day. Not about just getting eyeballs, but eventually making money. You need to have a plan about that.
Absolutely. No, that's a great piece of advice. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. This event. One of the goals of the Gamcast is to encourage alumni to come to our event in January of 2025. What would you tell our alumni audience to encourage them to come to the GAM event, to GAM in January 2025?
I think GAM is a wonderful opportunity to look at what others amongst your peers and your previous generations of alumni are doing. It's also a place to network and meet amazing new people, and it's all going to be amongst friends, so you can be yourself, you can enjoy yourself, while at the same time imbibing the spirit of all of your batchmates as well as seniors and juniors. And you can offer mentorship, you can be mentored, you can find such amazing people to talk to and share stories with.
And there's a bond independent of, I obviously did not go to college at the same time as you did, but there is a bond that I can come to you anytime and say, I'm an alumni. uh, can you give me guidance, can you give me some tips? It's a natural bond just by virtue of having gone to that college.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're always happy to help each other, and being alumni of this college, we've all shared the same experiences and maybe evolving experiences, but the college is still the same, and I'm sure we've all had amazing experiences there.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Senthil, for the great insights. Loved your passion, loved your focus, loved the attitude of always finding a better solution. Uh, you're truly an inspiration to the alumni. We're proud to have you as a alumni of NITT, and it's a pleasure to have you as a guest today. Thank you so much. Any final words for the audience?
No, thank you so much for having me here. It's been a pleasure, and I hope I can share any help with my the rest of the people at REC.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thanks, Senthil. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.